Hello everyone, this is the Nameless One, and today we are going to be continuing the Creator Roundup with yet another Animators Creator one Roundup. I don't have a number for... We lost count. We're just going to start calling them whichever group's here. Before we get started, I would like to remind everybody, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, follow on Twitch, all that good stuff. More on how to support the channel at the end. And, of course, don't forget to check out the lovely people who have joined us here. And to get started, I think I'm going to bully Saf first. Who you are, what you do, and what your first animation was.
I knew you were going to do that to me. Who I am, I'm Sapphire Sisterine. Hi. What I do a lot of stuff, but we're talking about animation here, so I do animation. I do 2D and 3D animation. And I mean, like, what do you mean by first animation? Because by all technicality, my first animation was like in the corner of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, like drawing little stick figures fighting with each other and then flipping through all the pages. Like that was a long time ago.
Literally gonna be my answer.
Like, I don't even have that anymore. But I guess that's my first animation that I remember.
I mean, that works. It fits the category. Diamond, your turn.
Yes, and hi, my name is Diamond Ching. I'm actually a 3D animator / concept creator, and I would say my very first animation was actually it would be the Find Us and Piggies 1 animation of five long nights and based on Five Nights at Freddy's.
Okay. Cup?
Oh, hi. I am Compute, also known as the Real Compute. I, animation-wise, I am actually an amateur artist, animator specifically. I do very small projects. Like, a lot of mine are like colorless animations. If I do anything long-term, but I do a lot of looping animations, like pixel art and 2D animations. And I've dabbled a tiny bit into 3D. My first ever animation, if we have to go with like actual first, like say like digital wise, it's probably like back when I dabbled with my first pony animations, though they were very I think they were actually pixel art that I did a very, very long time ago. I did like a YCH set where it was like bobbing head ponies, and I did that a long time ago. And then I revived them semi-recently. But yeah, that would have been my first and what I do.
That would be the one that you gave me the tiny walking animation, right?
Yep. That is the revived version of it, yeah. Yeah, I made those years ago.
And Glow?
Hi, I'm Glowpone, and I've been animating since high school, back when we were using MS Paint. But back then it was mostly sprites and fileable background stuff. I did some work in VRML when Second Life came out, and I guess that was my first 3D model, was actually a Zerg hatchery. But I didn't really get into 3D animating until about 10 years ago.
Okay. And Dreszy.
Hello, thank you for letting me go last. I just got my food. I am Jesse Greenheart. Most of you know me from my MLP channel. I dabbled in animation many, many years ago. SFM being basically my starting animation software. My first ever animation officially on that software was an animation of, I think it was the IBIS model of Mangle. It was never like officially posted, at least like not to noticeable stance. It is now considered extremely lost media. I cannot recover it no matter how far I search, but that was my first animation ever. So, safe to say that FNAF was the reason why I animated. So,
Okay. And let's go ahead and get started with questions. I think the first question we'll do is the my usual first question, actually, honestly. What does y'all's creative process look like? What do you do to get started? What do you do to like? What does your process look like? And we will start with Glowpalm.
All right. Well, honestly, it starts as a mess. Mostly books of paper and pencil to try to sketch down whatever the project is about. And then I'll move into 3D and actually put together some kind of background to start playing with. Nothing will be finished, but it kind of gets an idea of where things are going to go and what's going to be put where. And I move from that to collecting models. Sometimes I just throw together some stick figures. Sometimes I'll have references from what I'm actually working on that I can place in. And once I have the idea of what's going to happen, I might have audio to go with. That helps a lot. After that, it's actually making the models, and that probably takes most of the time if I have to actually sculpt the models or make the models. And even if I get models to use, there's fixing them so that they can bend in the right places. And then finally, once everything can be moved, it's a lot of timing things to the music and actually doing the animating part.
Okay. Saf, your turn.
Bruh. All right. So my animation process is also pretty chaotic. Um, Particularly what I did with oh shoot, what's it called? With a little bit of darkness. Um, I had that thing marinate in my head for like 7 months, and I was thinking through all the shots. Um, it wasn't until like I got sick, and I also got really motivated that I actually started animating it, and then I did it within like 4 weeks. And it's funny because I was actually really crap at animating with grease pencil at the start of it, but then because I was doing it for like 6 to 8 hours a day every day, it got better. But typically, I marinate on it for a good while, try and get it all in my head. I'll do a maybe I'll do a animatic of it or like a storyboard just so I don't forget the stuff in my head. And then I will go in and well, animate it. It's pretty straightforward. I usually do 3D stuff, so for that it's pretty straightforward because I use the Valiant Studios models and there's no real need to fix those because they're built for Blender. So, but yeah, personally the hardest part is really getting, because I haven't been doing it for very long, especially with the 3D ones, really getting it to look natural and not like it was, animated on a computer, if that makes sense.
Okay. Diamond.
I'm sorry. Wait, what was the question again?
What does your creative process for animation look like?
Oh God. it's like someone says, it's totally chaotic, but when it comes to Animator, like, depending if you're actually trying to make a funny clip or on the music video, I'm mostly just trying to think it on the top of my head. But for when it comes to the funny clips, I usually try to represent it like based on the clip itself in the best way possible. As for the music animations, I used to try to listen to this all several times just to be able to try to get the inspiration that I'm looking for. But yeah, as far as I know, and I'm mostly just trying to make up the scenes as I go.
Okay. Jersey?
For me, it can vary between like I guess not vary in any particular department. I mostly use pre-made models, but I've been mostly looking for models with those kind of rigs that are like easier to use in Blender. But even then, like mostly everyone else's, my animation process is really messy. Don't I haven't really done sketches for my work as much, but I've been dabbling into being more okay with the animation process being messy at first. Because originally I just tried to keep it as clean as possible, have the scene directly in my head, and just portray it out on the computer. I put in the audio, and I just work with what I have. And majority of my stuff is pre-made assets, but I have been dabbling more into creating models. Granted, they are simplistic, but I eventually do want to use those for future animations. But again, my process, I can't really pin down to be 100% with you because it is so messy that I am not sure what I am doing half the time. I just do what I feel like is right in the moment, like what can be done in that like point in the animation, and I just see if it looks good. I might hate it when I first look at it from a different perspective, but when I look at it from the camera's perspective, then I know it's going to work. So honestly, I can't really pinpoint my own process of making animations. It is a little frustrating, but I have been working on it more, and I'm still, regardless of how good my animations might look, I am looking for all sorts of advice and like any sorts of help. I normally just go to like YouTube videos and stuff for some of the info, but I do also like hearing it from legitimate like animators and other people who know this work. So then I know that I'm getting this information from a real person and from like a good source, I guess. But I guess that's all I can really say about my personal animation experience.
And cut.
Okay. What's weird and funny is that my process is kind of just I don't even know if I could say straightforward. A lot of the time when I do animations in general, it is very much on the whim. Like it, you know how like people will just doodle on a napkin and then they're like never going to think about it again. It's kind of like that with me in animating. It's very rare that I make anything that is much more than just simple animations. But I guess to explain like bigger projects or thingies that I'm more dedicated to, my process is more just kind of getting an aspiration from like looking at a tutorial of somebody doing animations in like a certain thing, or like looking at someone else's work and feeling inspired by that and then making my own like, animation based on whatever program or method they use. For example, and ironically this kind of ties into something that I dabbled in like sorta recently. I say sorta because I started last year. Animated PNG tubers. Uh, I'm going to be very brief on it, but essentially they are you make like a sort of puppet for a program that's called PNG Tuber Plus. You put that puppet in there, and then it helps rig it for you, essentially, where you place the pieces together, and then it animates itself in the program. I know that's not exactly the same, but it's fallen into the same realm as animation for me. And my process with that is planning out the pieces, making them, and, trying to, like, animate it in my head to see, like, what it would look like. And a major thing, if you want to get into animation, it's really important that you do look at references. Both references from actual animations, like, say you look up a GIF of, like Pegasi wings flying, right? You look at that to get a reference of how to draw and animate wings. Or you even look at actual, like, videos of wings flapping in the wind to get a good basis on what that looks like. I dabbled in, like, looking at horse running cycles and such to get a grasp on that. But it's very important for your process, if you want to get into it, to look at a bunch of different references, because that's what I do. Especially with practicing, because most of my animations is practice. But yeah, just that's my process. I either do it on a whim, or if I do for something serious or practice, I look at a bunch of references and I just go for it,
Okay. So this one's probably going to be more for the 3D animators that we have today, but there's an animation that I remember seeing on YouTube that they did something very interesting at the end, where they showed, like, the behind the scenes of, like, what the camera doesn't see outside of the animation. It's Pudis Engaged, I believe, or Pudis Extreme. It's an SFM animation, but it shows some of the stuff in the background, like when it gets extreme close-ups and things like that. The models are stretched all the hell and back. How often do you guys use tricks like that to fool the camera into the optical illusion that it shows something that isn't quite exactly what the audience thinks they're seeing?
Is that like a free-for-all question to answer?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start with that. For those watching, you can see the black with the white, like, the white animation on it, like the little black and white animation. That's a really bad way of saying it. But the dark one, right, that you're seeing on there, that's from a little bit of darkness. And you can see that I've panned the camera around and showed different angles of it. Particularly with that 2D animation, I did that a lot because I just needed the audience to know what I wanted to show them and not really anything else. And because it was 2D, I could afford getting away with a lot of stuff that would not look good in 3D, kinda, right? But also for 3D, like, usually for most of my stuff in 3D, because you could either call it I'm lazy or I'm just smart and not putting in more effort than needed. It depends on the day which one you want to use. But generally, I don't do I don't do anything more than what the camera needs to see, because doing anything more that it's not going to see is just a bunch of extra effort, right? And I'm not going to spend that effort when I already have very little motivation most of the time anyways. So, yeah, that's that.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go next if that's okay. Oh, wait, sorry, wait.
Go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead, Jesse.
okay. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest. I am still not used to doing something like that personally, because I have slight OCD and I want to make sure everything within the animation is as perfect as it can be. or else I'm going to feel like it's way too messy for me to work with. But I have been trying to get more into messing with the camera, like the camera's perspective, and like hiding things that most people won't even see in the finished product. But as hard as I do try, it does get hard because that's not, my brain can't process it. Like it doesn't feel natural. But the whole point of like animations like that is that it's not supposed to be natural. You're supposed to take advantage of it in ways that, real life can't exactly comprehend, even from like a camera perspective, or like seeing it from a whole world view or whatever. So if I'm, I don't use those tactics as often as I should, but I am getting more into trying it with my 3D animations. It's just I need to pin down like where the camera is and all that, and like where the angle's gonna be. And I'm gonna be honest, that's still a struggle for me to get down, but I'm working on it, and I have nailed it down to a point with a couple of animations I did on my main, or a animation I did on my main channel that isn't the dressing channel. And I'm still, working on it with some other stuff that I've been doing, and it can get complicated. But once I finally have my brain just say, okay, just do it, it's fine, then I will probably use that tactic more, because I know that's like basically what all 3D animators do with their animation. I just need to have my brain be okay with that. That's just my personal struggle, honestly, but I'm getting over that hurdle slowly.
Okay. Hello, you can go ahead since you piped up next.
I was going to agree that not animating things is sometimes the hardest thing when you're doing 3D scenes, because you're always, am I going to put the camera over here? Do I need to make sure these are moving even though we're not looking at them? And it's even worse if you have something reflective in your scene. But one of the tricks like that, I don't use orthographic or 2D very often, but I do use holdouts, which is basically a color you can paint something in a 3D scene that will make it transparent when you render it. So I will use all of my foreground characters on a regular camera, and then I will render the background behind them completely separately, and maybe use a fisheye lens or shift the perspective to give it some kind of energy that you can't do with regular 3D. The scary perspective hallway is one of the neat effects you can do like that.
Interesting. Diamond, do you have anything to weigh in with this one?
Honestly, not really, because from what they basically said, it's basically just kind of read my mind when it comes to this stuff.
So it sounds like most most of the people here struggle with the don't animate the things we can't see.
Pretty much.
If I may explain why I guess I'm the odd one out here. Like for me, I own a game company, and so making anything outside of the camera that doesn't need to be there costs money. So it actually, I don't need to make anything
Costs
outside
money?
of the camera. Yeah, because I pay people for it. It's a company.
Okay.
So I've gotten into the thing of I'm gonna make things as efficient as possible. Like, if you're in like a game scene, right, and there's a bunch of trees, several miles off in the distance, and you're never gonna go there, they're just gonna be a PNG. Like, I'm not gonna go through the effort to model a bunch of trees and put them there. It's just gonna be a picture, right? And
Yeah,
the
that's the thing
same.
I struggle with. I feel like I have to have the models in there. Or it's not going to feel real.
Well, also for me, while like for my personal animations, I'm not spending money on those, but I am spending a lot of time. And when my computer is rendering, right, that's taken away my time because I can't do anything else really while my computer's rendering. So, for something like that, if I had a forest, you're damn right it's going to be a bunch of cutouts with a tree texture on it because I'm not about to let it sit. I'm not about to have my computer spend 20, minutes per frame. Usually I get mad if it's over 1 second per frame in terms of render time. So, yeah, I try and keep things as cut down and as efficient as possible.
Something to add to that, because you're doing game creation, I've actually had a few animations that I later turned into VR chat worlds and had to go back and animate everything that wasn't moving because they could turn the camera.
Yep.
Annoying pain.
I guess it
I
also
think another.
depends
Sorry.
on. Oh, so sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna add, the reason why I want to make sure everything's animated is so that it's a lot more lively, but not everything
Really
can
quiet.
be as live. I was trying to add that I want to try and animate everything because I want everything to be lively, but I have to come to realize that not everything can be moved. Anyway, go ahead, compute.
Yeah. It also depends on the purpose of why you're animating, extra things, especially things that are not going to be necessarily seen. Like adding little note of details even in the background, yeah, that could be something interesting. But you're spending extra time on something that people aren't going to focus on, right? It's really important that you want to focus on the main point of the animation, the point of it that is going to be the focal point, and everything else is just going to be a blur, you know? And the blur is whatever is going to be essentially the things that's going to be left unanimated, Ironically, this type of thing also can be put into like painting, for example. Because with painting, like you don't have to add every single little nook and cranny of a detail in this section of the painting or this section of the painting. You can just leave dots and, blobs of color. But when you, zoom out and you look from the whole perspective, it looks like a whole piece. That is essentially what you want your animation to look like, is a whole piece, and that you know what the focal point of it is and what is the story being portrayed there, right?
To add on to that, actually, there is someone that I knew who, and I'm not going to name their name. I think they're better at this, but they used to render their stuff in 8K. Uh,
Jesus.
no one's gonna see it in 8K. Like maybe one or two people's gonna see it in 8K, right? And when I asked them about it, their reasoning
Yeah,
was
they'll probably
so
have an
they
8K monitor. That's
yeah.
insane, though.
Their reasoning was so that they could see all the detail. And I'm like, okay, dude, when you're animating this, are you like zooming in way far, like beyond, like way into the camera to look at stuff in the background? Don't do that. The audience is not gonna do that, right? Just
And I thought I was
yeah.
doing too much rendering because I do mine in 4K at most.
Now 4K is understandable because
It's
if you do
basically
something,
commonplace now.
well, yeah, but if you do something at 1080p, YouTube is just really bad at crunching down the quality. If you do it at 4K, the 4K one's actually going to look nice and crisp compared to the 1080p one. So, yeah, but anywho, like, I guess what I meant to say with that is to add on to Compute's thing is you have to look at it from the perspective of the audience, right? What is the average viewer going to do? You know, if you were someone watching this video that just came up on your YouTube feed, are you really going to sit there and spend 20 minutes analyzing every frame and all the little details in the background? No. You're not.
I
Okay, well, you're special.
I know we're looking at the perspective of the viewer. I still struggle with that concept.
It's okay. That's really all I have to say.
It's funny though, because like that kind of idea is also something that you want to take into perspective, not only as a writer, but I'd imagine most artists as well. It's like, will they see this? Will they notice this? Will I need to put the bark on this tree in realistic detail when realistically it's a mile out?
Just make it brown.
Yeah. The other kind of part to this, though, I think might also be partially because the animation that I was specifically referencing to bring up this topic was done in SFM, and SFM seems to have a lot more restrictions than Blender animations.
Yes, it does.
Oh yeah, I agree. It does.
Yeah, so like with a lot of the shots that they were lining up with the animation, they would have like the model, if you were looking at it from the camera's perspective, looked really like it was one of those like, how did they get that shot? And then they turn the perspective to the side and the model's stretched out like a mile long.
Yep.
So I'd imagine Blender doesn't get that problem as much.
I mean, well, so that in particular isn't actually an SFM limitation. That is just an artistic choice to do, like, to make it look more extreme like that, right? I know the shot you're talking about in Putis Engage. Like, I know what you're talking about. It's the it's like where he reaches up towards the camera, and then it showed like a different angle where the arm was really long. But from that perspective, it really just looks like he reached up all the way to the camera, right? You'd have to do the same thing.
Well, there was actually a couple of different shots that they turned, like you have to like mess with YouTube to like move the recommendations out of the way for most of it. But while I was watching it, they had like, it was like one of the shots where they were like leaning in front of the camera, and I think it was the elevator shot as well, where they had stretched the model all kinds of it was if you could see the behind the scenes, everything looked like a mess.
Yeah, and that is that's, I guarantee you that, like, something for, say, if anyone's here watched Spider-Verse, I guarantee you it looks like that. You know, because that's how you achieve those shots. It's not an SFM limitation. It's actually not a limitation at all. It's an advantage that you're able to do those things, because it can allow way more artistic expression and feel, and really make it more cartoony in many ways. So, yeah, like that is a feature.
See, this is why I ask these kind of questions.
Yeah, I also know that SFM has like this large workshop, which is like the only thing I have an issue with Blender is that it's hard for me to find the proper add-ons for Blender in making that. But with SFM, it had a large library within Steam that you can just, grab from and use in SFM. And I know they had like these plugins to make things stretch out and stuff like you would in Blender. So I guess it's not that limited. You just need to know how to use the software, in which, even though I've used SFM longer than I have Blender, like 11 years I've used SFM, I've stopped. I still have no idea about that kind of stuff. So when I saw Putis Engage, I was fucking stunned. This was all made in the Source Filmmaker. And there are still a lot of like animations that are in SFM that feel like it could have been made in Blender as well. But I just have no idea how they did it, because I'm not that well educated, despite the fact I've used it for 11 years. That's my own fault for being on such a small portion of the community where I couldn't exactly take the time to learn those kind of tricks. So now I'm making up for that time in Blender.
Well, and also there's another interesting thing, Nameless, and this is really for the rest of y'all. Any of you who have actually looked at the SFM models know that they look like crap. They're
I agree.
and trying to set up shots with them makes their face look so weird, and that's because of how they modeled it. But you might notice that, for the past 5 or 6 years, it's been looking really good on a lot of channels. Yeah, that's just forced perspective and like forcing the camera to be like a much smaller FOV, so that things look flatter and that makes the face look better, right? Because otherwise, it's just gonna look wonky, like it's animated in Gmod, right?
I mean, I've seen some people do some interesting stuff with that too.
Oh yeah, I'm
Although
not saying that that's a bad thing.
It's very
It's
much.
fun.
Yeah, no. Sorry.
I actually remember one of the first animations I saw from the fandom was a Gmod animator by the name of the Inverted Shadow, and he does some pretty cool stuff. I don't know how he has the
Shadow is
patience
really
for it, because I remember. Go ahead.
I was trying to say, in my own personal opinion, SFM and Gmod animations are their own kind of art, just because of like their rendering softwares and the way stuff is done with their own separate softwares, and it's much different than the typical Blender or C4D or whatever Maya, whatever 3D software you normally use. I feel like SFM and Gmod animations are honestly their own just kind of art style. I don't know how to put it with that.
I disagree.
Oh,
I disagree because I have specifically had SFM animators come in and work with Blender, and once they got past some of the minor controls, it works the same in terms of the animation stuff, especially when you crack open the like the oh crap, the graph editor, you know, with all the lines and you
yeah.
can change all that. SFM has the same thing.
Do you have
Yeah,
something?
okay.
Gmod,
Hold on. Did you have something you wanted to say, Glow?
No, I was gonna say the same. The dope sheets and the graph editor pretty much is the same from what I understand. I've only touched SFM a little bit once.
Yeah, the only reason why I say it's so different because I feel like their rendering software is a little different compared to Blender. Like I can tell most of the time if it's made in Blender or in SFM. Like I
yeah.
can tell, and that's just I guess it's
Because
unique to me.
SFM is an old game engine from like, oh my gosh, like 2003 or 2005. It had lots of limitations, right? And actually, for any of those interested, I believe if you go on Minty Root's second channel, one of the fan animation panels, Vincent Visions made a very detailed presentation about the differences between SFM and Blender and the pros and cons between each, if you're curious.
Interesting. So I think we're going to move on to the next question so that the others have a chance to weigh in. So this one's going to go back to just like generalized animation. In y'all's opinion, other than, just getting started and doing the thing, what's the most important step of your animation process? Like, what is it that really brings it all together for you? And I'm going to let Diamond go first.
Well, in my opinion, when it comes to the animation, the best way to try to do it is basically take your time with it. Because I will say the animation does take time to be able to do it, especially in how much an effort you try to put into it. Like for example, when I did the Can You Survive in animation in Final Fantasy Piggy's edition, based on what's going on in real life, it actually took me at least a year and a half to be able to get it all done, and honestly, oh man, even though I was still, well, even though I was still learning how to animate at the time, it was honestly the best work because it took my time with it.
So you'd say patience would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay. Cup.
I lack patience.
Can
Which
verify.
Mood.
listen. I lack patience in certain things, and one of them, unfortunately, is animation. Um, for some reason, it's one of those art forms that takes so long, just because it's such a repetitious process. Especially depending on what you're animating. If you're animating somebody like talking, you're gonna hear for the next like hour and a half of like the lip syncing.
Oh,
Or if
yeah.
you're listening to the same song 20,000 times over, that song will literally just completely
Yep.
devoid in your
The perks of being an animator.
yeah.
Sorry.
You will understand every detail of that song after you're done animating.
Yeah.
it. It's a little scary. Crap, what was the question? I heard freaking patience, and I was like, wow, man, I wish I had it.
So the question was, what was the for you? What is the most important step in your animation? Because I was thinking things along the lines of like, is it storyboarding? Is it like the finishing up the process and like putting lighting and stuff like that?
But yeah, it's definitely planning it out. Because one of the things I've noticed as an amateur is that your ideas, that whatever you're gonna come up with for your animation, can either stick to your head for a good, say, couple months, like Saf had with his process, or it can be in a matter of minutes. And so it's really important to, like, if you have an idea for an animation and you really want it to happen, to write down that idea as detailed as possible, at least with the basic structure. And I say this as in the basic structure, but because my problem with animating, and again, as an amateur, this is my specific problem, and maybe other people do, is that I stay too long in the detailing process, right? I have an idea for an animation, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna put it down, and I'm gonna start working on it, right? And obviously, as you can tell, like a lot of my animations that are like frame by frame, which is 90% of them, is black and white. And that's because I never get past that process because I'm stuck in the first part of the process, doodling, adding details to the sketch. I even do lip syncing in the beginning of the animation, which, by the way, for I have a feeling every other animator here will be like, you do lip syncing either last or after you do the basics.
Absolutely not.
It's,
I do it first.
No,
really?
I do it in the middle for some reason. I don't know how, but I do it in the middle.
I do it first because otherwise the face is moving around everywhere and I can't, just get a steady
Well, yeah.
forward on.
With 3D, I imagine that's the reason. I do like 2D, like drawing frame by frame animation.
For that,
And
definitely last.
Yeah. And I do lip syncing, like literally in the middle of drawing those frames, which is a bad idea. Draw your framework first. Use references, major use references, because I do that too. And draw your structure first. Write down those ideas you want, and make sure that like whatever you're wanting to do, you understand to some degree how you want that to go, right? You want a beginning, to an end that can change at any time, but you at least want the structure there. It's really important if you want that animation to even happen in the first place. And I say this as somebody who has so many different failed projects because I didn't do those things. But this is something I'm learning very slowly as time goes on, and I am trying to get better at animation. So hopefully that's some advice.
Okay. Glowpone.
All right. I guess I'd start with what Cup was saying is trying not to overanalyze the details. I was actually told once a famous quote, "Don't let perfection be the enemy of good." And that is true. You can spend so long trying to get something perfect that you never actually finish it. So actually finishing it is more important than having everything perfect. But that said, I think the other more important thing is to have somebody look at your project before you actually finish it and see if they catch anything that you just totally blanked out on. A leg that doesn't move the entire animation, something. Because by the time you're done, you're blind. You can't see the things you're animating anymore.
So, going back to the question, I would say your answer is like the the cleanup.
The cleanup, yes. Having a second look at everything, making sure you didn't miss anything.
Yeah, that seems to be a thing with most forms of art, honestly. And sometimes you just need to step away before you come back to it and look at it yourself. On top of all of that.
Yeah, in the music side of things, we call that the next day listen, because you could get ear fatigue, where like you just all of it just kind of blends together in your head because you've been hearing it over and over again. Same thing with, visuals, because you've been seeing it over and over again. Your mind starts to stop logging or cataloging all of the repetitious details, right? So either stepping away from it for a specific amount of time or having someone else look at it is important.
I mean, as a writer, I have very similar issues where I knew what I wrote when I wrote it, so my brain will not register that, I skipped a sentence, I skipped a word, I used the wrong spelling, I gave the wrong gender for the wrong character. So all of that will be things that you'll miss after you're staring at a project for so long.
I think my favorite detail I unintentionally forget sometimes is adding a horn or adding wings to a character. I sit there drawing every single detail about this character, and then somehow I forget, oh wait, they're a unicorn. Oops.
It's like the G4 surprise alicorns.
Right. I mean, that's not all bad. Without things like that, we wouldn't have Derpy, so.
True.
Actually, that's not true. I've spent time to go look at it. If you look at, because she shows up in the very first episode during the party scene, she's like a copy pasted background pony, and in the background for all of those shots, she has normal eyes and normal face, but for one shot, she has a derp face with a scrunch. And that, like, you have to go replace that in you have to go swap out that mouth to get the scrunchy face in Flash. So like they did that intentionally.
There are plenty of other random errors, though.
Yeah, sorry to shoot you down there.
It's all right. It's all about the lore.
In fact, with that, Little Shy does the Cinemare sins. If you ever want to see any of those. I've also lost who I have pretty sure I did everybody to my left, so we're gonna do Saf next.
That crap.
Did you forget the question?
What's the most important part of the process?
Okay.
Um, so for me, it really is kind of it depends on the scenario. But for a lot of them, it's really making sure that the idea is solid. Because I can, sit here and hallucinate to myself that this is an actually solid idea, but then when I go and try and do it, I realize it's really not all it was chalked up to be, right? And so that's why I spend a lot of time thinking about it, because I want to make sure that I do have every specific detail there. But that's more from like the thinking about it perspective within the actual process of creating the animation. For me, the camera is one of the more important parts. Figuring out where the camera is going to go. Usually, what I do, especially for 3D, is I pose the model kind of in a rough way of how I would want it, and then I put the camera where I want it to go, because when I do that, now I know here's what the audience is going to see and what all details I don't have to do in the background. Like most recently, I had to make a clip for an unfinished music video I have, where it's my character in this desert plain, with these craggy mountains in the foreground and like a bunch of rubble on the ground. It basically looks like the surface of Mars, right? But having all of those particles, all those rock particles, is really expensive. So I just was like, all right, where are they going to see it in the camera? And I just deleted everything that wasn't going to be in the camera. But also because the camera in 3D stuff is really important for setting up the focus and thus the interpretation of a shot, right? So like something being very close to the face is really going to feel personal, and or other. I am really bad at explaining that. If you want to know someone who's really good at explaining that, you go talk to Lone Rider. But either way, just the camera for me within the process is really one of the most important parts because it will determine everything afterwards, generally.
And Drizzy.
For me personally, I would say it's like setting up the scene so that you know what you're working with as you work on the whole animation. Even if it doesn't have like anything in it, setting up the characters themselves can also help, and just getting them prepared for the animation. I would say second is storyboarding, but honestly, I don't do much of that myself. I need to try and do that more though. I'm just not used to being sketchy with my work firsthand. I've been trying to be a lot more okay with it as time goes on. So for me, it's definitely just setting up the scene and making sure you know what you're working with. That's really about it. I'm sorry if I got the short end.
Actually,
fun.
if I may tack on,
Go ahead.
you really don't need to storyboard. If you think about it, storyboarding is really so that an entire team can understand what shots that's going to be divvied up between the various animation crews, right? And also it is important, like especially for a much longer, much bigger animation, for the pacing, and figuring out and really putting that idea down because otherwise you're gonna forget it over the next 1 or 2 years you're filming the thing or making the thing. So that's important there. But like for small stuff like that, I personally only storyboard when I will otherwise forget what I'm thinking of in that moment. Otherwise, it's all there, and I just do it as I go.
Yeah, I would more want to use the storyboards to make sure I visualize everything from my head down on paper or like digitalized, I've been trying to do more of the storyboard stuff recently because of the fact that I now have a team that is helping me with this kind of stuff. So I'm really getting used to it. But for like smaller stuff, I feel like it's like trying to set up the scene and what you need for the animation.
And for the
That's just my
record,
personal advice.
yeah, and for the record, you don't have to storyboard with 2D if you're not good at it. Like, you can storyboard with 3D, just snap the characters around in the little poses you want them to be in, right? That's perfectly
Yeah.
fine.
I think I want to try 2D more because it's like easier, especially because I did it once with like my sketchbook that I have, and that worked out pretty well. It was really sloppy, granted, but I think the idea got across. I just need to talk with my team again to see if we can work on it because I want to get because there is a project with it that I want to get out. I just haven't had the time to talk with the team over it because of this other project that I'm currently working that is related to everything going on in a weird way. Again, when that next meet rolls out, I can't speak much on it right now, but yeah, it's very complicated. I could just say that.
Makes sense.
Okay. And I think our next question, we'll do the my usual two-part one. What is something that you wish you had been told before you started animating, and something that you would tell a brand new animator? And Flo, I'm gonna let you go first.
Hello?
Is Glow dead?
Oh, sorry.
Welcome back.
Well,
Did you miss the question?
No, you cut out there when you said the name. I didn't hear it. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Well, what I wish I knew before, that would probably be the perfection being the enemy thing. Because when I started, I would just spend all of my time trying to make every little detail absolutely perfect the way I had envisioned it. And, I've seen a lot of animations out there that my old opinion would say they're bad animations. Not bad, but not the quality that I would have expected. But some of these really undetailed animations are a lot of fun. And so they're some of the most popular animations on YouTube. So really, I guess what's important is getting your idea out there for people to enjoy, regardless of if it meets your own expectations.
Okay.
And advice for a new animator, before you go buying any kind of software, just try Blender. It it may be a bit harder to learn than some of the other ones, but really you can do amazing things with Blender. And if it doesn't do something that you want it to do, it has its own Python script that you could have someone code or learn to code yourself if you need it to do something very special.
From what I've heard, Blender is probably one of the most widely used animation programs, anyways. So being able to use Blender is even if you're looking at it from a professional angle, is still like it's a good skill set to have. Is that all you?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to fact check you on that because I agree. I don't know. I just don't know how accurate it's widely used is. It's starting to get more widely used, definitely.
I have only heard a couple of other programs mentioned at like professional levels, and there is just like one or two of them. I can't even remember the names of them. That
Maya and 3ds Max.
Yeah, those two. But more often than not, especially with like on the indie scene, you'll see Blender more often. Honestly.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't
I mean,
know.
you really want to shell out thousands of dollars a year for Maya, and it doesn't even have like online tutorials. You have to go to college to learn that dang thing. Like,
I
I
mean,
suppose another thing to consider is
Nuh-uh.
I started getting into Unity, and all of the legalese and paperwork, if you use the free version, it's actually quite scary to even look at. So there's also that side of it.
Blender's open source and free for everyone.
yeah. So there's nothing wrong with using the free tool, and it's not going to make you better at it if you go and pay for something. That
I agree with that.
that's actually a good piece of advice for just about every. I'm noticing we're coming up with things for these answers that are just good advice, just all around for any kind of artist, whether they be writer, but be animator, musician.
What can I say? Us creatives can think alike sometimes. They kind of
For
flow
real.
through the process. So
For real.
Jesse, you get to go next.
All right. For me, what I wish I would have heard first is do not rush your projects, and also don't be afraid to ask for advice, because I still struggle with this, honestly, of thinking I can do everything on my own and not ask for any help in the process. That is a lie. If you can ask, that is also just what I'd say to new beginners. Don't be afraid to ask for any kind of help, and do not rush your projects. Do not let the analytics of other people's videos and animations scare you that much. Because yeah, they might be producing the next big thing. You can produce something as well within the time that you're putting the effort into the animation. Take your time with it. Don't rush yourself because of how fast the internet is moving, and do not be afraid to ask other people who are in the field for help, because you're gonna probably be lost and not know exactly what you're doing if you don't at least have some sort of guides to look over or people to ask for help on. That is my personal advice. Is something I wish I was really fully told as I was getting into animation, because I still slightly struggle with this issue of rushing and feeling like I can do everything on my own. But I've been more okay with looking up YouTube videos on how to, even though it's hard for me to explain what the issue is. Eventually I'll find a tutorial on it, and just I do try to take my time within actual time that I set myself to actually do the project in, and even then I just take my time with it, go slow, and it eventually turns out good. So again, that's the same advice I'd give to any new animator. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. Uh,
No, that was pretty good. Diamond.
Oh boy. Honestly, it's kind of hard to say in the first person since Jersey. Because I will say I'm kind of in the same issue on same issue on juries. As for as for the advice, though, like she said, it's better to try to take your time on it instead of trying to rush on it, because you honestly never know what you're missing out on as you're trying to animate. And honestly, it's your boys you would actually wanted to be an animator, whatever you believe you can actually achieve.
Okay. Cup, have you gotten to go yet?
I don't know if I'm the best person to ask for this question because I'm already a newbie.
Well,
Too much of a newbie.
there There was two parts to the question, so
I'm just gonna correct the record. Cuphead's been doing animations for like 3 or 4 years now. They're not a newbie.
No. Listen.
I just want to hang on. I just want to bring this up really quick.
Yeah, go
The
ahead.
best places to find advice is like either YouTube or like some sort of servers like a Telegram or a Discord server full with other animators and artists that are in them that could, give you the advice. Or also just have really good friends to help you as well. That's another thing.
Heck yeah.
Go ahead.
Listen, I
But
don't know.
did did you forget the other half of the question, Cup?
Yes, I forgot.
Okay, I thought so.
immediately forgot.
The first half of the question was, what is something you wish somebody had told you before you started animating? And then the second half was, what would you give to newbies as advice?
Man, I don't know if y'all are gonna agree or disagree, but animation is hard.
Yes, it is.
hard. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I looked at that and I was like, yeah, I could do that. It goes to freaking try and draw, and I'm like, drawing the first 3 frames, and I'm already crying because I know I have 20,000 more frames that I need to do. But yeah, I went in completely blind originally. I didn't even bother looking at tutorials before, which again, really dumb idea. It's very important that, when you learn something, you look at what other people are doing and learn to adapt from their skills and how they essentially honed their craft. And a lot of what I was doing originally was just, seeing somebody doing an animation. Oh, I want to do an animation too. I got this idea. Let me just, And sometimes it worked, but I'd find little bits of flaws here and there with my animations, or I never complete them. And so I'm just sad and miserable, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm not an animator. And then I do something else. And then I'd always jump back into animation, and I'm like, oh, looks like I'm not an animator. But
Do the equivalent of, am I an animator yet? No.
no. But the reason why I'm even here is because I've done the I'm not an animator, come back. Oh, I'm not an animator, come back. Like, I've done that enough to know that to some degree I am, because like I have bits and pieces of the foundation, and I know, again, to some degree what it's like to painfully just stakingly drawing and animating, both in 3D and in 2D, but mostly 2D. Because a lot of my process was like, first frame, draw it. Second frame, draw it. Third frame, draw. And I did that for every single frame before. Then I not remembered, but I learned repetition is your friend. You don't have to draw every single frame. You can copy paste certain things. So I guess something to really hone down on, 2 things for newbies, and wish I knew before I started. 1, animation is hard, but 2, don't be afraid to learn what other people do and learn the shortcuts. The shortcuts will save you. They will literally grasp you by the neck and be like, listen, my son, you got this. You can do this. You can literally craft with your hands the most beautiful thing. You just gotta understand that you don't have to draw it like you are a god. You can do these little shortcuts of, like earlier, not animating everything that is in the scene. You can animate things that aren't necessarily seen. You can stretch limbs so then they, they exaggerate different things. Look at tutorials, look at references, look at freaking like how people do transitions, how people like use repetition in their work, things like that. For turnarounds, for example, don't be afraid to copy paste left and right if needed, which most likely you're going to need it, depending on if your character can be completely symmetrical on both left and right. Then you may need to, draw in certain details. You don't have to spend 200 hours on a turnaround when it can only take a fraction of the time. So that's something really important. What was the second half of the question? I know the first one was, what do you wish the younger person of you would have known about animation? But I don't remember if there was another question.
Advice to newbies.
There's your advice! I just answered my own question. Well, hopefully that helps. I'm such a I feel like an infant in this, but I have done it enough to know what not to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think Saf's the last one for this question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Something I really wish I would have learned is to not overcomplicate things and to be patient. And I think, at least for me, those things go hand in hand. Or hoof and hoof if we're all going to be ponies here. But the reason why I say that is because many times I would go in to a piece of software I didn't know how to use, thinking that I knew how to do it, and wanting to do the thing that was in my head, but I didn't know how to do it, and I overcomplicated it, and I didn't go look for help, and I got impatient, and I stopped. And it's only been through like very small progression of, learning this skill and that skill that like I've gotten the amount of skill that I have, and it's usually all for other things. And they just kind of conglomerate together into the blender knowledge, really. So I guess with that, my advice, because Cupute stole the shortcut ones,
Sorry.
which I personally like to call that bullshitting, because everything outside of the camera is just bullshit. Like, so, though on that, I do actually recommend, if anyone here or in the audience does 3D animation in Blender or 3D animation at all, go look up Ian Hubert. That guy will teach you how to bullshit really good. But anywho, my advice would be really learn the software. And you don't have to learn it by doing the thing that like they're telling you to do. I mean, you can, but really actually spend the time to learn the software. And I actually don't like the idea of going to someone, because as someone who has been gone to with that, there are some things that you should just go look up from a video, because from a video you can go back and repeat it over and over. You could save it in a playlist. You can, cut a little piece off of it and throw it in one of your folders on your computer so you know what that is. Or you can do a lot of things with that. But me sitting here in a voice call telling you what to do, I can only tell you to do that during the duration of that voice call, right? If you forget an hour later, you can't go back to it, unless you have time travel, which, X'd it out. But so really,
Friend makes a tutorial video, but yeah.
what?
Or if that friend makes a tutorial video
Are you
of
telling me
what
to
they
make
were
a
doing.
tutorial video?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying specifically in that circumstance. because you're
Yeah,
saying
but
like,
I mean that's
oh,
kind of a
but
big ask.
I'm not saying like you have to. I'm saying in that circumstance, it's either A, time travel, or B, they already made a tutorial.
Yeah, so, well, there's already a bunch of tutorials out there. So don't be afraid to go look at tutorials, right? Don't be afraid to learn your software and do, like, you don't have to make what they're saying. You can make whatever the hell you want. Like, usually what I would do is I would, like, say, I would, I wanted to know how to make a laser, right? But I wasn't getting search results like for a good laser, so I looked up. Okay, how do I make a lightsaber? Because that's close enough, right? So I go and there's a tutorial on how to make a lightsaber. And I'm like, all right, nope, I'm not modeling the stupid base. I just need the laser part. So I just yoink that and put that in whatever thing that I'm doing, right? So you don't have to like follow the tutorial exactly. I think like I got to like halfway through the donut tutorial and then stopped and started making spaceships. Like because I didn't need the particle stuff. But I would say really spend the time to get familiar with it because you might learn a whole bunch of stuff that's useful for you. And the reason why I say that is because especially for the animation of A Little Bit of Darkness, much of the things that much of the knowledge of Blender that I had coming into it was knowledge that I got the knowledge that I got from somewhere else. Someone said the what nut tutorial, the donut tutorial. Anywho, sorry. So like it's knowledge that I got from other things, right? But applied to Blender. For example, uh, in that animation, there's like you could see it that there's like hair that's like really flapping in the wind or whatnot. That's just a noise modifier on one of the specific grease pencil objects, which is part of the modifier stack, which you absolutely wouldn't think about if you've never done that in Blender, because that usually doesn't exist out in other software, right? So really get to know your software, especially if you're using Blender, because there's so much stuff that makes life so much easier, right? So, anywho, that's really all I have to say. Just funny because that's a lot more of a do what I say, kids, not what I do.
So I wanna kind of circle back on something. I forget who it was that brought it up, but worrying about other channels' analytics as animators. So my experience, having watched various animators throughout various times in their careers, um, well done, especially lengthy animations, are going to take just egregious amounts of time. And if you are trying to turn your animation into a YouTubing career, um, you're not going to be one of those guys that gets one out every day. What's up?
Sorry, my laptop just had a stroke. I thought I lost y'all. We're back.
Okay. You're not going to be getting your animations out every day, every week. Sometimes it might not even be once a month. But once you find that audience and find the people that enjoy your animations, they'll keep coming back as long as you, at the very minimum, just like, hey, I'm still working on it. I didn't die. And
Yeah,
then,
freaking Minty Root like takes a year or more like per project.
yeah, and his
He's
stuff
working
looks
on it, like,
so
every day.
good too.
It does.
Yeah, honestly, back when I was doing this kind of stuff, I always worried that I was taking way too long on making videos, and I had that weird, like, creator stress of pump these things out as fast as possible, even though it's not true. Eventually, I had to learn just, like, take as much time as you need with it. Eventually, it'll be fine, and you'll be happy with the product by the end. Like, do not stress yourself to get things out within a week or a month.
Actually, I'm gonna like slightly blow some minds here, I guess. So the HarmonyCon 2023 fan animation panel, which you can find on Minty Root 2, is the channel. That was in February of 2023. Minty Root is showing stuff for Project Thundercloud in February of 2023, and that thing still ain't done yet. It's gonna be shown at HarmonyCon, but They still ain't done yet. That's on me though.
Are you guys, just a quick aside, are you guys doing another one of those panels at HarmonyCon this year?
The fan animation one? Absolutely.
Okay. So this is where Nameless decides to advertise that you should go check these guys out. If it's the usual group, all of them are incredibly talented and know what they are talking about. And if you are looking to, as either an aspiring animator or even somebody who does animation on the regular, it is worth dropping by to see what they have to say. And I don't know if you guys do questions or not, but
We do sometimes. It depends on the time. I think we actually have a decent amount of time this time because usually they give us like an hour and a half and we'd have to really crunch.
yeah, that sounds about right, to be honest.
See, we have, we're going to have EG Studios, who does the How It Should Have Ended animations, Minty Root, Pear Mare, Silver Screen, who's the director of the Wasteland Productions project, Fallout Equestria animated series, Vincent Visions, who does phenomenal 3D animations, me, and I'm Shadow 007, who doesn't really do animations, but is a voice actress and is on there, and also a writer, and is on there to talk about that side of things, because that is a part of it. So, yeah, definitely come to that and learn. Or don't come to it and don't learn. It's your choice.
I will also be there with panels, so be more than happy to see anybody who shows up. They did kind of short me on panels. I only have one right now. The other's on a wait list. But
I'm
yeah,
glad I only have one.
man, I love doing panels. But
I love doing panels too, but like, oh my gosh, last year sucked. Like,
Yeah, but
like
you
they
had,
a
like, 8 of
panel
them.
like right at like midnight, and then a panel at 11 in the morning. Like, are you kidding me?
You can't do
Or
that?
like 8 in the morning. No, I can't do that. I have to actually have sleep in order to be able to think, you know. So
But yeah, I will be at both HarmonyCon and the final BabsCon. So I have applied for panels for both. I don't know if any of these guys will be at either of them, other than Saf and I will both be at HarmonyCon. So, but
yeah.
Heck yeah.
that-
One of these days, I'm gonna join y'all. I promise you that one of these days. I have to figure it out first.
we've been more than happy to have you. But
Hell yeah.
before I get distracted again. But yeah, with animators, if you can look around at a lot of the major animators on YouTube, and you'll see the obligatory talking about how everything takes for fucking ever to get out, and it's really shit because YouTube doesn't really support that very well. So don't think about YouTube as like your career. Your animation is your career. If you really want to make money off of it, then I would suggest Patreon. So that way the people that want to support you can support you, and it's not just begging YouTube for a penny for every 1,000 views or whatever.
Could I say something on that actually? On Patreon?
Go ahead.
I know that out there's people who like, you know, they do like interesting benefits of like, oh, get some free art or like this or that, and like that's nice. But as someone who has a Patreon open for a game company that actually pays people, it costs money to do that. You know, it costs money to do that. So we don't have benefits like that. The only benefit we have like that is if you pay $100 a month, you're getting your OC in the game, and that's the only type of thing that we have like that. Because otherwise, it's just more effort and more money spent not on the project, right? So, personally, for me, I have found out that as long as I, from the get-go, say, look, you're not going to get very many benefits out of this. The whole point of you coming to Patreon is to support us support this project, support me as an artist, and help me do the thing, then you're going to get people who are going to support you because they want to see you do the thing, right? They're not supporting you for the benefits, and so there's not going to be all that damn drama about, oh, well, could I get my benefits and having to worry about that? Because I've seen people, get wrapped up in having to fulfill Patreon stuff way more than working on their own thing,
See,
and that's not fun.
That's why, as a streamer, I really like how Twitch does it, because there's not that, yeah, you get some emotes and the ads go away, but that's about it. And that's all that's really expected of that. So I could see how that would be something that you'd really want to watch out for as a creator on Patreon as well. Hell, I fell into that trap with my Patreon, which is basically dead at this point, but hold on just a sec. So I'm actually gonna do Percelion's question real quick before I do my last question for tonight. Percelion asks, what are your thoughts on separating pony animation onto a new channel as opposed to mixing it into an already established non-pony channel? I have some thoughts on that one, but does anybody else want to answer that first? Because that is honestly more of a YouTube question.
Okay, the bigger question is it non-pony as in specifically MLP? Because
that would be pony.
yes, but I'm saying as in because
the question you asked was, is it non-pony as in specifically MLP?
Yeah, but for example, I do wild mane animations as well, and I don't know if that counts as...
I feel like because of the comparisons drawn to it, then yes, it will probably be lumped in.
Okay.
For the sake of argument, we are going to say yes.
Okay, cool.
Especially with as many people in the fandom that have branched out to wild manes.
Yeah.
God, I'm trying to pick apart for the fucking upcoming reanimation collab. All the parts that I could possibly do are taken.
So I'm gonna go ahead.
There's already a thing for it?
Yeah, no, Gator Goat Johnny made an announcement for it. It's for
I know, but is there already a thing to claim stuff for it?
Yes, and I'm trying to claim one right now, and oh my god, all the ones that I could do are taken. Oh no.
Where is it?
So I'm going to
sorry.
We can save that conversation for after this. So I'm just going to go ahead and say what I was going to say. If you were looking to answer that question, Percelion, if you're looking at it from an analytics standpoint, YouTube's going to fucking hate you for that. Absolutely abhors the idea of mixing audiences. That's why you don't see a lot of channels doing I've got this stream VODs as well as edited content if they're larger channels. Most of the time they have multiple channels. Channels like mine, my YouTube channel is honestly more hobby than my Twitch channel is, and I would not recommend doing the kind of things that I've done with this channel, because it wants to see this dedicated audience is interested in this type of video, so then you can move back and forth, and it's going to be messy. Now, if you're just doing it as a hobbyist, absolutely go for it. As long as you have the audience that you want for it, and as long as nobody's like you're not causing yourself problems with it, then there's no reason why you shouldn't. But if you're looking at it from a professional, like YouTuber standpoint, no, that would be a fucking nightmare for your analytics. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
What was the whole conversation about? I'm sorry, I've been.
Don't mix stuff on your channel, or yes, mix stuff on your channel.
Basically, would you recommend like separating pony animation from non-pony animation on it to a separate channel, or keep it on the same channel?
Personally, I keep it on separate channels solely because my YouTube channel, my main old one, is like, I feel like nothing's going to come of it anymore. It's just become a personal posting channel. So I think it might be best to separate it solely to make sure that the videos are reaching the right audience technically. I don't know how else to put it. I just personally put it on a different channel because I feel like it's a fresher start for me to do so. But in terms of like just generally, honestly, yeah, I'd say probably put it on two separate channels, unless you feel like you could have them both on the same channel without any mix-ups. I don't know.
Yeah.
I agree, but only when you're actually trying to like play the analytics system, like because
Yeah.
I really I really don't care. Like I do to a degree, and when I post a pony video, it obviously gets way more views than when I don't post a pony video. But I don't care. Like I'm here to upload my stuff, I'm not here to try and get famous or whatever. I'm just glad that people see it, right? Glad they enjoy it. But even then, one of the things and one of the reasons why I say this is because I've seen channels that have like 4,000 subscribers and they get like 5 views on their videos. Like I really more so care about people actually watching it and appreciating it than numbers. So when it comes to playing the system for that, I think you should definitely separate it. But I mean, otherwise, if it's just a personal place, does it really matter?
I will note that if you are looking for an audience, though, that some audience members might get really frustrated where they came to you for like one thing and then you only post that one thing once every 6 months, but in between you're posting a bunch of thing that they don't care about.
I will note that. Please, like, if you're gonna do stuff that's like a whole bunch of stuff, like say you're doing pony animations and you decide for like the next year you're gonna do let's plays, don't put that on another channel. Like, please put that on another channel.
Yeah.
Redirect people to that channel. You can do that, but put that on another channel because it's just really because I've been the one on the receiving end of that. All that makes me do is like, all right, I'm gonna turn off the notifications on that because I keep getting this. I keep getting your let's play, and I'm not here for your let's plays. I'm here for your animations, right? So, but I don't really do that. I usually make some form. It's either memes, music, pony, or that's really it.
And then I think the last question that we'll do for tonight. So I know there are some things out there that everybody looks at them and goes, "Oh God, what the fuck?" Have you ever had something that you've animated, and if so, what was it that you looked at it after getting started on it and go, "Oh my God, what did I get myself into?"
Like, what? Can you be more specific?
I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, you got something?
What do you think? Like you did that animation in a while back, but you're honestly thinking, like like you did an animation a while back, and you're thinking on actually remaking it because it was so cringy?
I'm kind of thinking more along the lines of like it looked simple when you either came up with it or somebody pitched it to you. Then you realize that not so much.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
absolutely.
I suppose I could bring one of my old animations up for this one. So it was a clockwork animation, and it had all these amazing moving parts and gears and weights spinning around.
I'm
And it's supposed
sorry,
to be a-
that hurt before you even started. I can just imagine the work that would go into something like that.
Oh, I spent so much time getting all the parts moving just perfectly, and I did a part 1 of it. But when I got to actually doing the camera, it was so hard to actually show the work that I had done that I never actually made the part 2 because I couldn't figure out where to point the camera because everything was moving and you couldn't see anything.
Oh damn! It sounds like it'd be really cool.
I almost want to like revisit it as a VR chat world instead at this point because then you can like walk around and look at it.
If you decide to do that, let me know and I'll showcase it on my Twitch stream. Because I do VR chat occasionally, rarely,
I will keep that in mind.
and I would want to see it just because, anyways. But that's I can only imagine how much work that must have been.
It was one of my first introductories into Blender, so it was also me just learning and playing.
I mean, it's a hell of a way to learn.
Yeah.
Saf, you also sounded like you had one right off the cuff.
Yeah. Well, I can't even like mention how many things I like opened Blender. Like I thought I could do it, and then I opened Blender, and I didn't even get to like deleting the default cube, and I was like, oh man, I can't do this shit. Like, like it's way too complex for me. There's many projects like that, but one that really one that was really like that was I was making an animation about my abuse and trauma growing up, and there was supposed to be like this really stylized interpretive animation is better how to say that of like this there's a part in it where this like demon like creature is like beating the shit out of one of the characters, right? And I realized I don't I don't have the patience, the skill, or the fortitude to do that right now, and I still don't. And so that one's been dropped, and for that and other reasons. But there was one thing that like I was able to like it's kind of similar, but that was actually a success. In A Little Bit of Darkness, that scene where they're being chased through the hallway and out of the hangar bay. That was the last scenes that I made because they were the most complicated because I had to, hand draw all those running animations and do a physics sim on that shit being destroyed in the background, right? But those stayed pretty much blank throughout the entire 4 weeks until like the last couple of days because they were very, very complex and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do them. But thankfully, I was able to pull it off. So I'm very glad that A Little Bit of Darkness actually was something that I finished. Like that was a blessing to finish that because
This sounds really good too.
it was a complicated animation. Like, and for the record, I don't know if this means anything to non-Blender users, but that like if you go watch that video, once the warning ends and it starts, all of that was in Blender. Like 100% in Blender. It's not in separate project files. It was all in the same project file, and it all actually played live. Like pretty much on time. Like it was all in the same thing. I didn't separate it out like a lot of people do. Which helped, honestly. So yeah. Anywho.
Diamond.
To be honest, I'm actually going to kind of. I'm honestly kind of blank on this. Like, I honestly have no answer.
That's fine. Not everybody's dumb feet first into something they couldn't handle. Or wish that they hadn't tried to handle.
Yeah.
What about you, Jezzy?
What was the question again? I'm sorry, I'm a little focused. I think.
Where did you? What is a project where your ambitions got ahead of you and you got like partway through it and went, "Oh my God, what have I got myself into?"
Honestly, I don't have a whole lot of animations that are like that. Not that I can think of off the top of my head, at least. If it comes to projects like that, I'm currently working on the the FNAF related map, but that doesn't really have much to do with animation. But I am at that point, like, what am I doing? I don't think I'm gonna be able to finish this. But like, when it comes to animations, I can't really think of any that are okay. Maybe the Chromacopia one. I think I was at that point where, like, because I had a bad computer at the time, I didn't feel like I was going to be able to finish it, but I did. But I think the Chromacopia fan animation I did with the ponies and with, like, Dresny and all that, I think that's where I probably got that feeling of, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this.
Okay.
That's a good example of Dresy actually reaching out for help for that, because Dresy came to me for help on like the
Yeah, and I'm probably gonna need to come to you again because I'm currently trying to look for a Celestia model that works.
Hello, hi.
Yes, hi, please give me.
And Cup.
Every animation. Okay, to be specific, anything that is long form, I genuine and it's really difficult. Like I have so many different like you know the meme with artists. They have like 20,000 projects, or well, I could actually this is for any creator. They have 20,000 projects that are all in the work in progress and that they're never going to finish. And it's just in the depths of the files, and you're like, well, time for the next one because yeah, goodbye motivation and hello new idea. So
Mood.
For real.
yeah,
I'm ending my
yeah.
friendship with current animation and making a new friendship with other animation.
That will last not long. I mean, depends. It really depends on how much dedication you have towards that thing. But for me, it's very short term. I have problems. But yeah, no, that's one of the reasons that like almost so many of my animations that are frame by frame, that aren't loop animations specifically, like very very short ones, they are all uncolored and look like they're bottom bin sketches, right? Because even doing that takes a lot of time. Like, it can take up to, and y'all probably broken records with how long y'all take with making animations. But for me, 10 hours or more, or even like 5 hours on an animation can be a lot for me. But for other people, for y'all potentially, or even just creatives in general, depending on the craft, that sort of time commitment is something that you like doing because you enjoy the process, you enjoy the creative mind towards putting into that craft. But with me specifically, I haven't found a process that lets me sit and fester in those hours upon hours of work that I put into something. It's also because I have so many ideas, it's really hard to stick with one, and I, commit to that for who knows how long until I actually finish it. It's really difficult. But yeah, rest in peace to my projects and my folders that some will not see the light of day or will never be colored. I think my first ever, and don't laugh at me, my first ever animation I ever finished, genuinely like long-term animation project I finished, was an Among Us animation. Why? Because Among Us characters are simple AF. They are literally beans. They are round orb characters, and they were so easy to animate. Gosh, I even thought about coloring that one, and I never did. Rest in peace to the could have been the colored version of it. I think I started on 5 frames of the coloring and said nope. So, yeah. Props to y'all if you color your animations or have color in your animations. That's dedication right there. Or just animating in 3D. That still boggles me. I cannot. So as a 2D artist in Animator, it's really hard for me to transfuse my mind to see in 3D. I do not.
I do need to say my
understand.
earbuds are gonna die. I need to plug these in, so I might not be able to hear anything for a bit. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, it's okay.
Oh.
I genuinely cannot think in the perspective of 3D. Like, I don't know what axis is the coming closer and coming forward axis, but I can't think in that perspective. It makes me feel like I'm playing 4D chess as soon as I open up Blender.
Understandable.
Yeah, just personally.
Orthographic camera will be your friend.
Yeah.
Maybe. At the same time, I still don't understand, because another thing, I work with mobile. I have an iPad that I draw every single thing on, mostly, for digital works, right? If I do pixel, it's either on my iPad or, luckily, I've dabbled a bit in Sprite and I made some of the animations. The ones in the slideshow you see of Sunny, and I think I put the Misty one as well, depending on which ones actually got in, but the Sunny one for sure, I made in Sprite, and that I made on the computer. But everything else, animation and otherwise, I have made completely on my iPad. And the interface of using keybinds and such is still, I'm like brand spanking new too. It's really hard for me to adapt into that. And that's because I've always had a dinky computer setup, so I've never actually been able to adapt into that sort of style of animating. But anyways,
that is a funny thing about Blender is like I feel bad for my cats because they'll want me to pet them, and well, I can't.
You can't. You have to have both hands
all the time
to actually use Blender, and I know that because you gave me a cheat sheet with like 20,000 different keybinds, and I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to actually just? I feel like I'm typing.
Yeah, basically.
When I'm using any sort of both art programs and like just any program in PC, it's constant Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, or Control, whatever freaking letter or number you have on your keyboard.
Well, you see, if you had one of those little Wacom tablets, you could assign the undo to one of the buttons on the tablet.
Listen, I even tried that. That's the worst part. I've tried those digital tablets, and that's not good enough for me. I cannot understand, looking up and drawing. That doesn't work.
Practice.
Yeah, practice.
It's I struggle with it too.
That poor
but-
thing is sitting in its box.
Then go
I-
check it out.
I hurt my left arm once, and getting a 10-button mouse was the best thing I ever did.
Oh god, I love those
Mouse?
things. I don't do animation or anything like that, but I do play MMOs rather frequently, and having mice with buttons that you don't have normally on that side is just so good.
Oh. Okay, question. What the hell do you click aside from left and right and middle? Because 10?
Well,
Oh, you sweet summer child.
Well, there's two different types you can get. You can get
Or is there a button on the bottom too?
well, you can get ones that have like numpad attached to it, or you can get them where they basically the numpad, but they're all programmable buttons that you can tell it what you want it to do.
Like the however many keys on a keyboard isn't enough. Oh yes, let me add 10 more.
I mean, in those cases, no, it isn't.
Okay, so in all seriousness, Cuphew, like, you're talking about the PNG Tuber Plus, and
Yeah.
there is not a single button on my keyboard or on my mouse that I can bind in order to make it change expressions, because every single one of them gets used by Blender.
That is scary. I don't
I just have to
like
turn that
That's what a Stream Deck's for.
Well, you see, I don't have this thing called money.
Why does Blender use every button?
there are
Because
actually some things that Blender isn't even mapped to because there are no buttons left to map, like
Yeah.
roll.
Imagine having a fully optimized setup where you have to buy like 3 or 4 keyboards just to be able to do anything.
That would be funny.
I'm
But no, okay, in all seriousness, like, to explain to the audience, the reason why Blender is that way is because otherwise your option is to go through a bunch of submenus every single time you want to do an operation, and you're usually doing those operations all the time. So having them all bound to different keys and key combos makes the process, once you learn it, makes the process a million times faster.
But yeah, if you look up like Razer Cell's MMO mice, it looks like it's a mouse with a numpad attached to the side of it. And I'd imagine that things like that are just amazing for animators.
I'm sticking to my MX Master 3. I like the weight of it. But yeah. I don't know. Everyone's like, oh, you should have like a really light mouse. And I get that for Twitch gaming, but like...
Never heard that before, but okay.
I've heard it. Like, what?
It's less resistant on your hand. It doesn't give you as much hand cramps.
Well, I mean, I've never really had hand cramps, but it's more of like, for me, when the mouse is heavier, it's so much easier to just move it like pixel by pixel without having to change the damn DPI. Or not DPI, whatever. The other thing, what it's called. You know what I mean.
Sensitivity.
For me, it's just more important to have like the actual like mouse pad underneath so it tracks properly.
I have that.
Elevate keyboard.
Derpy is my mouse pad.
Mine's Luna. But that's no surprise to anybody, I think. But I think that is all that we're going to do for tonight. For those of you that enjoyed that and would like to see more of it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, follow on Twitch, all that good stuff. For those of you that want to, I will probably be going live here soon for some Marvel Rivals. If you want to hang out with the community, there's always a link to my Discord in the description. A huge thank you to my only 2 Priest tier patrons, Cameo Shadowless and Ice Crystal. And, of course, a big thank you to the lovely people that were here for this podcast. We are still fiddling with the schedule because we have other things that we need to fit in. So we may be doing it so that Creator Roundup and an Alicorn Discusses get broken up to, depending on the number of weeks in the month, you get one per month instead of both of them in the same month. So if you are curious on how that's going to look, the schedule will be posted in my Discord. Other than that, we will be live tomorrow, hopefully, barring any weather-related issues, with Lost Memories Second Chances, and then again Sunday for Heart of Darkness, again barring any weather-related issues, and then after that we'll be going live again for Marvel Rivals on Twitch. Other than that, everybody have a great evening, and don't forget to drink water.
You know what that means. Fish.